and maybe here that tale will have a very different conclusion. We're into the map bans, and G2 are going to take away Flores to kick things off.
We'll get those operator bans running through. Koi will be taking our second attacker. Not too much of a surprise on the Flores. You know, very powerful at removing that utility. A lot of utility that's likely to be used here on Villa. You know, we've seen from G2 things like Alamai holding on to Master Bedroom with Zami. You know, if you've got the Flores able to just keep sending those Roteros in, it makes it much more difficult to do something like that. So, you know, maybe that's a little bit of an indicator of the style of play we're going to be seeing from G2. Maybe, you know, a little bit reliant on the utility, but no surprise to see, as I've mentioned it, as Army goes.
So we haven't seen too much Villa from these two teams over the last year or so, but for Koi, Azami has been the most banned operator they've had. Banned three times by themselves and 2 against. Valkyrie, interestingly, normally the one that teams take away. But for those of you who have missed it, of course, Solus has come in. Very, very good defender at being able to inhibit the power of drones, for example. Just really oppressive as a defender to be able to bring along and disrupt the attacker's plans. So not at all surprised to see that one taken away. And I think Flores also makes a ton of sense, Tim. We can think of the number of times we've seen teams rolling through 4 of those drones to take out Shields, Malusi Banshees, ADSs that have been stacked up, especially on this site. So not all that surprised to see it. But one thing I am very surprised by, Tim, is looking in the bottom right corner of your screen. We've got Benja, the new player, bringing out the cab. You know what that is, Tim? That's not an operator pick for the game itself. That's for the mental.
It really is. What a bit of spice to get thrown into round 1, and that's what I was hoping for, not just here at SI, but in this game. You know, as I say, 2 teams know each other very well, and just having to think outside of the box, having to bring something a little bit different, maybe feeling that risk is needed to get that great reward that they're going to be looking for pushing forward. So we are well and truly underway now, Des, here in Montreal for SI 2023, here on the B stream, G2 versus Koi, and round 1 it is. Keep your eyes fixed firmly on Benja throughout this round is all I will say, and I hope that Koi have got their eyes on him as well, because otherwise it's gonna be a problem.
Well, Crying got close with his drones, but he was rolling around inside a kitchen rather than down in the basement, because the joke about basement on Villa is it's a black hole. No one goes down there. No one knows a call out for down there. That's pretty much guaranteed. So he could really do some damage. And sure enough, there he is. The little rat has already struck. I love it.
And it is going to be Crying that gets picked up now. Crying was on the knock. We know how powerful Crying can be on that operator, and was trying to work across that ground floor clearance. That gives a little bit of a problem now, potentially, for Koi. Not only have they got a Caveira somewhere on their flank, but they've no real way of shutting it down, especially when Doki comes in and doubles down with a kill onto Spoy. That leaves Koi on the back foot as he manages to find Kanto as well. Doki, one of those players, says, we've said it time after time, it can be a little bit famine or a feast, but he is tucking in round 1.
I love the mobility out of Doki as well, because often teams on defense here will hold hard, where Leon is now actually inside a trophy and statuary. But instead, he's playing in the hallway and netted himself a 3k in round 1. Doki's looking transformed so far. But again, the smart play of holding around 90, not looking to go too aggressive, just letting Koi step into him one after another. Those have been 3 separate 1v1s he's taken. He's lost half his HP. This is about as good as it gets for G2 in round 1.
It's a fantastic start. If you're a Koi fan, do not fear. You know, we quite often see this, especially at the start of best of 3s. There is a long way to go and a lot of siege to be played yet. Deepak's going to pick himself up. A little cheap one off the balcony, finding the kill onto Doki, who thought he'd just go and have a look. In a 5v1, not the end of the world. And we know that Deepak's got that clutch ability. He's got that, you know, he's got that in his locker. But yeah, he's going to have to go a long way here. 1 minute and 4 kills to find. It's not looking likely. But to finish the point I was saying, you know, if you're a Koi supporter looking at this, we often see teams come in and have a little bit of a slow start map 1, and I don't think it's going to be the end of the world.
Absolutely not. I mean, looking at how things have gone, okay, you've been picked apart by Doki, who's had 3 separate 1v1s. It's the first round of the competition. There's a little bit of warming into it to do as well. So I don't fault them for this. But equally for G2, it's a promising sign where historically, they've looked a little bit scared, to be honest, against Koi. I think back to when they played on Bank in Stage 2 and even back in Stage 1, which was the last time the G2 beat Koi, all the way back in April of last year. I look back at it and just think G2 was scared. They were pulling back to site super early, but here they've held aggressive. They've ran the clock down as well. They've left Koi with 0 options, and it's going to be a nice, clean first round for G2.
Nice little pick up for Alamau at the end there, just has a little peek around the corner and finds his man, and that is a strong opening statement from G2 in Aviator games. The irony there being that they were not playing any games with Koi, absolutely ripping them asunder in the first half of the round. Now, I don't think we're going to see any more Caveira picks coming out of Benja. He got his job done. It's one of those picks that you get away with it once, you don't get away with it twice. He's going to move on to the Warden. No surprise there. I think it's a smart pickup, you know, playing against that utility. Again, we don't have a Ying on board, for example, but your smokes, your flashes, you know, they can always be a big problem. Warden's just going to give that opportunity to avoid those issues. Nitro in hand as well, especially for a site that's downstairs. He's going to potentially play in combination with Alamau here. You're going to have Alamau on that heartbeat scanner, and the more Nitros you can have underneath, it just gives you that second, it's not the case here, but sometimes that third opportunity to find those vertical kills. But Alamau and Benja, I would expect to see them working together, at least in the first half of the round, to try and pick up 1 or 2 freebies with those explosives.
I just love this site. Living in Library, we don't get to see all that often, to be honest. Dining Kitchen and then normally Trophy Statue are the sites that teams head to. But a couple of teams over the last 18 months or so have tried some really cool stuff, normally involving a vault hold here that you can see in the middle of your screen. But you will notice, as Easy is very kindly pointing out, there are no vertical holes in that floor at the moment, which means G2 aren't playing how most teams normally would. Instead, what they've gone for is a very open defense on the top floor with some angles coming through in towards Study. They've got Red Hallway exposed as well through the opening on site itself. So it looks more like they're looking to try and challenge the side of Koi as they come a little bit closer to site and play behind things like that C4. This mainly on the top floor is to waste time more than anything else.
Koi making reasonable progress here. They've got themselves into the top floor. Spoit is going to be just looking to support Kanto there. As I said, Alamau, he's underneath. He's feeding that information into them, and it's honestly not going to take much for him to take an opportunity onto the Nitro, and then all we'll do is move that information and try and get Benja involved as well. He needs to be careful here, though, Des, because Spoit's on the hunt, and they do not want to lose that heartbeat scanner so early in the round. It's gone, and a Nitro with it. Doki, he is there for the trade, leaving us in a 4v4. He gets himself a second, and Doki is going big on Villa. Is it going to be a third? Can he cook up a surprise? No, he's going to move himself away and live to fight another day.
This is what I mean, though. It's the small, isolated 1v1s. First and foremost, great trade play coming out from Doki to trade out Alamau. Now the problem is Koi keep on taking separate 1v1s, and that's 2 rounds in a row that Doki's found himself 3. This is looking unbelievable so far. Absolutely decimating Koi. But again, Tim, it feels self-inflicted. They keep on taking 1v1 after 1v1, and that is where Doki is in his elements. Can't even find the last, and it turns into an ace for Doki, the demon of the kitchen.
What a start for G2, like you said.
Doki, 8 kills!
Exactly that. You know, you've got Koi, like you say, it's not really characteristic of them. You know, we usually see, for example, Deepek drawn in for...
1v1. There's a drone at his floor, sure.
This is what I mean.
Ryan comes in, another 1v1 breaks out, another 1v1 breaks out, and of course the final one versus Deepek is also a 1v1, but...
It's not what we expect from Koi. You know, usually, I know it's generally on the defense, the example that I'm going to use, but the way that Deepek and Spoit will work together, for example, Deepek will have the Echo drones ahead of him, he'll be feeding him the information. You know, they're usually working in tandem and as a team fantastically well. Somebody else will be out on the roam as well, you know, getting that information back. But on the clearance, there's just been absolutely nothing that Koi can do. They've been separated, they've been picked apart, and just, you know, it's been as easy as that for G2, and it's not a huge surprise to see that tactical pause coming in almost immediately for Koi.
I was just about to say, most teams you'll see, at the very minimum, they give it 3 rounds, 1 of each site, and then they'll have a conversation to sort things out. If they're taking a tactical timeout early on, that more suggests to me there's some real big strategical problem here or some communication issue in the team. And maybe I'm overlooking into things here, but I saw the Koi boys, I love that name from Fresh, by the way. I saw the Koi boys at breakfast and was like, I don't want to say they felt flat, but it was definitely very composed. They were listening to music. Normally, they're the jokers of the room, right? They're having a laugh with each other, poking a bit of fun at people. We saw that on Twitter when they were creating loads of content in the week leading up to this. But today felt a little more calm. And I almost want to see more of that energy coming out. That is when Koi are at their best, and I'm really hoping we're not going to see them defeated by some internal communication issues today, and that they do start bringing the fight out to G2.
Going to be heading into round 3, and Koi need to find something soon, I would suggest. They don't want this map to run away from them. You know, this could be a flip reverse of that quarter-final in Berlin. I don't want to get carried away too soon. You know, we've got plenty of Siege yet to play. But we've got to remember that Koi, as we said, pretty much ran over them in Berlin, beating G2 2-0. And right now, G2 are looking extremely good.
I love what Benja's done here. I think they shot the drone out because there were 3 that got killed during the drone phase there for Rogue. They had the one in the plant pot that saw him place the 2 Capcan traps on that study door. Once the round starts, he immediately removes both and rotates them off. So now it means Koi are going to have to likely re-drone that as well, realize they've been moved. And the one thing I always say about Capcan is he's not so much strong in the early round, if people are being unaware, of course, but it's more as the round goes by, you're just constantly having to check every door that you walk through. Alamau, the first one to go down in this round, same as the last. My only nervous point though, Tim, is Doki is still alive, and we've already seen what he can do across those first 2 rounds.
Spike managing to pick up that opener once again. It's good to see him going in there with confidence, information ahead of him, and getting those opening kills. That's exactly what Koi need from him. You know, we saw how talismanic his performances can be back in Germany, and they're going to need to repeat that sort of form, not just from Spike. The pressure's not all on him, but as a team as well. Now then, setting up nice crossfire here. I think Koi just thinking that they've got somebody caught in the middle here, but that's not the case at the minute, and Kanto needs to be careful here. He's going to get himself found, and by guess who? It's Doki once again.
It's just one of those again where for Koi, I don't know, the drones were starting to run low for a couple of seconds. On was on them, and they had the wrong idea that someone was still trapped around mud. But they've moved away a long time ago, and Doki with a beautiful side swipe. Again, just feels like Koi are boxing shadows at this point. They might have found themselves a kill early on into Alamau, but outside of that, it feels a little bit fragmented.
I mean, at the moment, they've got Deepak elsewhere in the map. He's on the drones. He's trying to give the information, but he's not really part of it, Des. And I think there's a fine line. You know, we've complimented Deepak's drone play so much, but the way things are going for Koi at the minute, it's maybe not the place they need him. They need him inside of the map, able to pick up those trades, able to impact the deaths or the movements of his team members around him. And it's just not happening for Koi at the minute.
No, it's not looking so good. I mean, Doki again, and the blind side.
Just free for Doki at the minute.
Kanto and Kryne have done that too in this round again. Well, not just 1v1s, but this time coming in blind, and Deepak is left trying to find whatever he can to pad out the KD, but it's not going to be the case as Doki yet again is now on 12 kills with a 4K in that round, Tim.
I don't necessarily want to be the one to say it, Des, but it's worth mentioning that Onigiri is playing over on Stream 8 and holds the map kill record for SI, 27 on Oregon. Doki's had, I think that's 12 now.
That's 12
in 3 rounds. I mean, you know, you extrapolate, it's not going to go at the same pace, it's not going to continue, but it's certainly doable. A bit of a comeback for Rogue, a few extra rounds thrown on there.
You've got to see the rounds drag out a bit more than this, because at the minute, Koi is walking in and they're like fish in a barrel, quite ironically, according to the name. It's looking flat, and that last round, despite the tactical timeout after round 2, I haven't yet really seen a net improvement. Again, it was more 1v1s, if nothing else. Things went backwards because they were going in blind, even with 5 drones still on the field. And I guarantee you, Fresh is probably sat outside now, shaking his head, because when we saw the map bans come through, we predicted that actually the 2 maps they banned away after this one will be the ones that we saw, Bank and Oregon. Instead, they were banned away, and these 2 maps got picked. These are maps that G2 are pretty comfortable on, and Villa being one of them, neither team's particularly strong on it. I just feel it's a bit of a risk coming here when you know you've slapped them on Bank twice last year already.
As a fellow stat man, I can guarantee that Fresh is sat there thinking about those records just as much as I am at the minute and watching Doki closely. It's, as we say, that pace is unlikely to continue. There's been 3 kills across the rest of G2, and it's not for the want of trying. It's just because Doki's hoovering them all up at the minute. And look at the confidence that he's building into now.
I like Leon coming along, though, here on the Sens. I think if you're struggling to really get yourself through safely some areas of the map, if you don't have a drone, roll out a light screen. Let that be what blocks the vision for you. For those who aren't aware of what that gadget does, you roll out a nice little dish-shaped gadget, and it puts up a light screen behind it as it goes. Bam. bouncing off walls and surfaces along its merry way. So really good for either executing where you want to cut off certain angles, or for just trying to safely move through certain parts of the map. And the only thing I'm worried about is it feels a little bit desperate, like they're out of ideas and they've got to think of something different, and their go-to answer is that light screen.
Benja just looking to make a little challenge. I'm not going to say that he's been quiet. As I said, the entire G2 has been quiet apart from Doki, really, but it's because Doki's hoovering everything up. Benja, there we go, putting that vector to work. Manages to find the opener onto Spite, who has done well in the entry so far, but unable to there. Cryan does manage to find one for himself, leaving us in a 4v4. But my concerns remain about Koi getting themselves in and established in the building. It just seems to be a real difficulty for them so far.
Looking better, though, so far, as they have managed to hoover up a couple of kills on their way through. Leon is down low, but far from out. And Doki yet to have an impact in the round. I'm not saying it's really his fault at all, but we've yet to see him strike. And he has been the main barrier to the side of Koi and success in these rounds. For now, they're holding down, though. I'm watching that drone count slowly ticking down, but look at that cross angle being held. Alamau a little too confident. And truthfully, Tim, he's been picked off really early on in quite a few of these rounds now.
I'll repeat what I said at the beginning of round one, and that is, if you're a Koi supporter, don't be too concerned. You know, quite often we see teams come in and just have a slightly slow start, and then round 4, round 5, they start waking up, and it feels like that's what we're getting from this roster now. They're managing to get themselves into this one, although Benja finds another. Doki on low health, though, as bullets manage to find their target. 2v2, 45 seconds left to go. Koi have got all the time they need here. They just need to keep calm.
But it's Benja and Doki. These are the two that you want left in a 2 versus 2 situation, because they're both absolute gunners. Benja, of course, coming in as the new pickup from Heroic, one of the top fraggers that we had in EUL, 2 kills short of the kill 100 kill club. There's one for Doki going down, can't find the second, but they get the finish off anyway. It's a 1v1, experience versus youth. Who wins out between Cryan and Benja?
18 seconds left to go. Cryan's thinking about getting that diffuser down. He's not going to stick it. He comes off. He knows that the push was there, and Cryan manages to find his man. Pops around the corner, and Koi take their first round to bring it back to 1-3.
Playing it brilliantly as well. Benja there trying to go real slow and not find himself caught out, but Koi just about ready. And no matter which way you paint it, Tim, it came down to a 1v1. It was super tight. Koi have finally got themselves on the board.
Doki, you've been fantastic so far, and it sounds hypercritical to pick up on anything he's done there. Going back for the confirm on the kill with the pistol, I'm not sure it was the play. It's easy to say now, he wants to get it done. And I've said this before, a lot of people often overlook the value of a down but not out teammate inside of the site in that situation, for example. You've got a free camera. It's a free camera whilst they're alive. So I completely understand why Doki's tried to finish that. I don't know if there's maybe a bit of a rush of blood to the head with 12 kills already wanting more. It's one of them. If Doki keeps himself alive there is absolutely zero opportunity for Cryan to pick Alamau up realistically, because he knows if he goes for it, he's going to get taken out. Maybe Alamau can, the man can crawl back out into Study and can, you know, maybe be in a position to be picked up. But the time that wastes would have just been far too valuable for Koi in that situation. So that'd be my only criticism there. I think the round was actually probably winnable for G2 from that situation when Doki gets the down. But hey-ho, Koi take their first, and it's game on.
That's it, and I imagine a big sigh of relief coming out the Koi players after that round as well, just knowing that, okay, we have got on the board now, boys, clearly it can work, and I say that as Benja comes out with a freebie C4 onto Kanto, who's 0-5, not found his way onto the kill feed just yet, the only player in the game alongside Blur that has the same, I suppose, accolade. I don't want to call it an accolade, because it's not really a good thing, but it's what they both currently hold. Benja yet again holding in the same position as well. If you remember last time round, he was playing on the Goya, had a few vector blasts and then backed away. Here, I imagine we would have seen the same, but instead rotates across in towards Arc Studio here, waiting on the window and sees Spoit, but can't quite finish off the other young gunner that recently joined the top level play.
It's difficult for Benja when he's being pushed like this. Don't, you know, underestimate that. He's on the Roni. He's got 16 bullets in his mag each time. Taking multiple fights like that is not easy. He's really got to sort of hit and run, hit and run, hit and run. He's got to keep himself moving. He can't take fights against 2 or 3 players. Doki, he comes back and manages to get himself a great kill onto Leon. Nice headshot, leaving us in a 5 versus 3 and looking good for G2.
Tim, it's been half a round and we're only just poking around the south side of the map here for Koi. They still look,
I've said, they're struggling to get in the map.
Yeah, we are talking a lot about Koi, but I've got to give it to G2. Their map control has been excellent. Sure, they lose a couple of players early on. Sometimes Alamau mainly being the target of that statement, and you can see it reflected in the scoreboard. 4 deaths, almost the same as the rest of his team combined. But outside of that, just the pressure being exerted, Koi looks scared, and that's not a thing we often say about this roster.
No, like I say, particularly Deepak's been very, very quiet, and I know he does a lot of the intel work, and I'm not suggesting, you know, that they can go without that, but they have to start putting a priority on getting into the map, getting some control, and starting to bully and push into site. You know, at the minute, there's not really been any difficulty for G2 in the majority of these rounds when it comes to the site-based players. Now then, Spoit, he's looking to push himself through Master Bedroom. He's got support of Deepak on the Wolf window as well. Is he going to find his man? The Mozzie is just inside of there, but Benja, he knows where Spoit's going to come from, and he doesn't need to peek this. He can just wait for his moment.
And that feels like what he's trying to do. Flash maybe coming in here as Spoit. They know that there's a player here, but they've run into the one. There we go, a trade. That's the kind of thing you're looking for. You've still lost a man, mind you, and it still works out as a net win for G2. They can keep on playing this trade game and have zero concerns. And as the Goyo burns through, it's another C4 kill in the round. Doki's up to 15 and 2. Spoit should be able to get the trade back onto the other side at the very least as he sprints in through the fire. Will finish off one, but with 10 seconds on the clock, this is looking like another G2 round. Koi, quivering in their boots, unable to get themselves inside the map too quickly, are going to find themselves down 4 and 1.
No opportunity and no point. Spoit trying to run himself in through fire, smoke, everything else that was going on there. All he was likely to do was give Doki another kill from beyond the grave if he died out to that fire. So another strong round for G2. Going fantastically well so far. 4-1, a 5-1 half. Whilst it is on the defensive Villa, and we do expect defenders to, you know, at least come away with an advantage on Villa, generally speaking. That has levelled out a lot over the last 12-18 months. But still, it's not wildly unusual, but 5-1 for G2 would be a fantastic start here. Just take a second in between rounds as well, because I don't think it's been mentioned yet. It's a real throwback for me, like visually and mentally, to see a G2 jersey on Fabian at an SI.
It's weird.
It really is, isn't it?
I saw him in the headset and I thought to myself, this would be the first time for Fabian stood there with the headset on talking to people.
It's great to see him back.
I tell you what, if Doki was like 0 and 7, he'd be like, get out that chair, kick him out there, sit down himself, pick up the mouse and keyboard, and he'd be blasting away, I'm sure. But at 15 and 3, what a start it's been for Doki.
And I feel like it's maybe what G2 needed. G2 didn't, and it didn't have to be Doki, it could have been anybody, but G2, what they didn't want here against Koi was to start getting embroiled in this, you know, tight back and forth team play, coming down to 1v1s. I feel like, you know, G2 and the stage 3 that they had coming in here, and that previous result against Koi at the Berlin Major in a, you know, in a LAN environment, I feel like they needed somebody to just get it by the scruff of the neck. Benja, he's looking to get this round by the scruff of the neck, and he gets himself one, and away he goes again.
Why have they not learned from this? Benja has been hanging around the bottom of Red Corridor or around Art Studio every single round to slow down their entry to the building. And most teams, normally you catch them out once and then they slow things down. They get back on the drones, they start playing as a team. But here they've been a bit too keen to follow that drone in. I don't even know if it saw the player in time, but it's just a freebie onto Spoit. And so far, the youth player on the side of G2 is looking far stronger than the one on the other. Alamau yet again going down early. I don't know, like, I'm not trying to bash Alamau here because the team are doing great, but he has been the one that you've seen getting caught out in these kind of little weird solo peaks too early in the round, and it is biting. Maybe he's just desperate to keep up with Doki, but he's got some way to go.
I think that's maybe exactly what it is. He's just trying to sort of, you know, inject himself into the round in some way, you know, try and get himself into the game. Virtue managing to get himself one as well. That's Leon going down. Kanto does manage to push in here on the Finker LMG though. No, sorry, it's the Spear he's going to be pushing in with. Obviously the LMG dropping off in popularity after those nerfs. Kills coming back and forth though, but ultimately it's that man again. Doki steps around the corner, kills onto Deepak, and that is going to be another round for G2.
17 kills for Doki. He's got 10 to go, Tim. 10 to go.
Onagiri's sweating on the other stream and he doesn't know why.
The only thing is, that was obviously the defensive side for G2. I'm not going to write off and say, oh, they've only won 5-1 because it's defense. Absolutely not. They have bullied Koi.
Oh, no, two ways about
that first half. Sure, there's a couple of rounds that came a little bit closer, but And again, I hate isolating individual players. I feel like I'm picking on people. But Kanto in that half, outside of the one kill, his whole role most rounds was pull down the EE1D scan, push in, hold an angle, die for it. Just had very, very little impact. I know Deepek's also in a similar position, but he was playing the hard support most rounds. He was the one left in the 1v4, so you somewhat forgive him there because everything else has already gone wrong for him to be left in that 1v4. Kanto, though, we have to see better. And I'm looking at him on the Jaeger here. I'm thinking back to old school Lanto Richetti. We've got to see him fly. He has to deliver for this team.
I think you're right. I think it's not just about Kanto. You know, they need everybody on the team to step up at this point because Koi have been quiet. There's no two ways about that. And the thing is, this could run away from them quickly here. This could be a 7-1. You know, if G2 come in and get this first attacking round, if somebody on Koi doesn't step up and take this by the scruff of the neck and start saying, no, you know, this is not how it's going down, it's going to be big trouble for them, and they need that answer to Doki. You know, they need that player to step up. I'm just not sure it's going to be Kanto this time around, I'll be honest.
It's part of the concern, and again, looking back to say like Berlin, in the final, he was unbelievable. Big game player.
Yep.
But when you look at him throughout the rest of the competition, it was mainly on the back of players like Spoit that we really saw flying up. We can't really afford to have that, not when the competition is as hot. There's so many big names that people are speaking about being potential winners. You can't have these off days or even off stages of the whole competition. We've got to see him fly.
Koi have now got their big weapon in play. They've got Dipek on the Echo. He's feeding the information on the defensive side into those players. So this is where the opportunities are going to need to come from. Crying, looking to push on towards main stairs there. Benja just working his way up on the knock. Manages to get himself established up at the top. That's good play from G2 because he can start moving in and hassle inside. He's got Doki on the cover as well. That's fantastic.
Look at the difference here though. 1 minute 30 previously. Koi were barely inside the building. Here, they've shepherded most of Koi back in towards site, bar 1 or 2 players, and have got themselves inside a study. The pressure, the pace, everything is looking so much better for G2 until Leon hits a bit of a zinger all the way through onto Benja, takes out that study control, and now things may slow down ever so slightly. Dipek, uncharacteristically, losing one of those yokais that have been lurking around those main stairs for a bit too long.
G2 just stalling a little bit. They got themselves established at the top of main stairs, got into study, but that kill on to the second man, Benja, at the top of main stairs has really not helped them. But Spoit gives himself away there, moving through 90 elbow, and Alamau on that window does not have to think twice. Kanto working around Map's door, just trying to get something going, but the heat's going to come onto him soon. He manages to get his kill though, Des. Very important, just stopping that push coming in from the rear side. Kanto can probably play out the rest of the round from Map's door here, which shuts down that study push, and this could be the round for Koi unless they can move that Jaeger.
Yeah, I mean, G2 did a great job inside, what, 60, 70 seconds getting into position, but from there have been a little bit pushed back. They've lost a couple of players on their way through after Benja died in study. Virtue off on the flank, as you commented, also falling down. So in a 3 versus 3 and 30 seconds on the clock, you start to favour the side of Koi here on this defence, especially knowing that you've got big clutch players like Dipek still on the field.
This battle with Kanto that's going to happen in a minute could be the big one, and it could be a decisive factor. He's not been winning a lot of gunfights so far, so this is the point, but it looks like actually they're going to push him through games though here. But we've got Leon. He's just let down prone. He gets himself one with the SMG. Barely fires more than a bullet, but Doki got him. Gets one, gets 2. 9 seconds left to go, Des. They need to think about getting this case down and Blur. He's there. He's ready. Dipek, he's going to have to do something. I don't think he's got a drone available to him because otherwise surely he would be having a look and using it. The diffuser goes down and it's now a 2v1 and the advantage was all there for G2. Des, where did they dig that round out from?
From Doki's backside, Tim. From Doki's backside. Pushes in and gets 2 kills, gets the man on site himself, but also the one that was sat on Map's door. Just, again, taking control of the site. And I think if you dial back even 20 seconds before that, I was saying it's a 3 versus 3. There's 30 seconds. They've got a C4 on side. They've got Dipek playing with the yokais. Like, it looked lost to G2. But in games like this, you need that big player, the big game player that's going to step up. This game, it's been Doki, and on the other side, no one is anywhere to be seen for Koi. The highest number of kills we've got is 4. Doki, I believe, quick count, 4, 8, 10, 14. He has more kills than the entirety of Koi combined, with 2 left to spare. Unbelievable.
Absolutely flying at the minute. We're going to see Koi go back to Aviator Games once again. They obviously felt that it was close, and to be fair to them, it was reasonably. There was a real opportunity there with 25 seconds left to go for them to put this map on the board, but they just couldn't get it locked out. A couple of players unable to win their gunfights. Leon was a little bit unfortunate. He was in such a power position, and they didn't know that he was there. You know, if he wins out that second fight as Doki pushes in, then that is the round done, really. But Leon just unable to hit those shots, and you're going up against somebody who is red hot at the minute in the shape of Doki. So round number 8 we move into. This could be our final one on Villa, and what an explosive start it's been from G2.
Hasn't it? I mean, I'm glad as well, being honest. For G2, they've gone through obviously a number of iterations and changes where they had Prano, for example, didn't really work as an IGL. Post-Prano IGLing was a bit of a mess, as Citizen kind of became the IGL, but they didn't really have a complete team as he was often the lurk player. Now I was really excited coming into this because Benja is much more of a team player. Although he's playing on the Nook here, ironically being very by himself, he's being droned in. The teamwork is there, and that's what I've been excited to see. I didn't know if it was going to click in time for SI, but at least in game 1, it has. Doki, though, the true juggernaut of this game, has been taken out by Leon, and that should at least give Koi a little bit of renewed confidence.
Yeah, certainly a good start for them. It's obviously a kill that they could have done with last round, Leon onto Doki, but he makes amends and gets his revenge here. Now then, Benja's working through on the Not going to be picked up by Spoy. As easy as that. Beautiful long-range headshot there with the Ronin. Going to leave us in a 5v2 in favour of Koi, and you can see why they've come back to Aviator Games, playing with much more confidence this round and really controlling G2 a bit more.
Yeah, doing the very best to, I think, but my concern still, I know they're down to 3 versus 5, but you just know someone else has been chomping at the bit to get involved in these gunfights that Doki has been so selfishly stealing away. Time will tell to see if someone is going to be one of these last 3 players, or if Koi have got it about themselves to keep things going. We've got half the round still to play. And right now, at least 3 sat on site, 2 playing off site. Koi can start pulling things back together here and playing more for the trades. As with these numbers, that is absolutely the go-to game plan.
Leon very low health up at the top of main stairs, but Koi just sort of symboling that, you know, signifying that they don't want to be losing that position at the top of main stairs as the second man moves in and sort of almost relieves Leon of his position. He pushes round into 90 corridor instead, just playing around the bookshelves, and there's plenty of manpower there from Koi to prevent this push coming up. Alamau just chasing shadows at the minute. He's no idea what is going on around him. There's obviously not a lot of information feeding in there that's going to help him push up those main stairs.
The thing is, Tim, he's the one who's got 2 of the team's 3 drones still left alive as well. He should be the one really looking to try and move Virtue and Blur in. I know they're playing on the supportive roles, but this is probably the best time to change things around, especially now all your EE1Ds have gone down too, but it's been a little bit static. Alamau taken down, as does Blur. It's Virtue left all alive, and this feels very, very reminiscent of what we saw earlier when Deepak was left in a 1vx. He'll get nothing. It's a flawless round for Koi, but is it enough, Tim, knowing they've got to get 4 more rounds like this on the board?
I'm not sure it is, to be honest with you, Des. I think at this point, you know, if I'm Koi, I've used my tactical timeout. There's nothing that I can do really to impact on this map other than just play round to round and do the best you can. I think, you know, I've got one eye on that second map, realistically, at this point. And the best thing that they can do here to help themselves with Clubhouse is to make sure that they get as many rounds as possible. You know, to try and get themselves back into it. The last thing they want to do is go mentally beaten up into that second map, you know, with the way that G2 are playing. So for me, if Koi can take this to overtime, then fantastic, brilliant for them. But do I think it's likely? Probably not. This is just about getting 4 or 5 rounds on the board and at least making G2 work for it.
Maybe I'm being a little bit cynical here as well, but that last round kind of told me this isn't going to be a clean, easy 2-0 stomp for G2. It might well be a real scrappy Clubhouse or a win to Koi, and we go all the way through to Theme Park for that last map. I only say that because look at the difference in G2 when Doki wasn't online. They were getting picked off here, there, and everywhere. They couldn't really win their gunfights. Everything just completely fell apart when he wasn't on the field. And I don't want to say it's all been just Doki. He's had drones, he's had support, for example. But looking back in those first 3 rounds, when you're walking away with 12 kills after 3 rounds, pretty fair to say you could chalk those off as one player doing all the heavy lifting, because that's exactly what it was. So I'm not trying to say that, you know, G2 are done for if Doki dies or there's no way back in. I just want to stress, let's not get too excited and say this is definitely over and done. If Doki has a quiet second map, it could be a very different conversation we're having.
The thing is as well, it's not, you know, we see this from support players a lot. It's not about just, you know, it's not looking and saying, oh, well, the other guys on G2 haven't been getting kills. They haven't been getting them because Doki's got 19 of them. But the problem is, it's not that they haven't been hitting their shots. It's it's that they've not been having the opportunity to keep themselves warm almost. And it happens to support players a lot, you know, and that's why I've got so much
experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got so much respect for support players that win clutches, especially at late stages of games. Because, you know, at this level of play, a support player can go 4 or 5 rounds without ever seeing a gunfight. And then all of a sudden find themselves in a 1v3.
Against the hottest entry in the game.
And go and win it. And so I've got a lot of respect for it. And that's the position that G2 might find themselves in. That some of the players are actually a little bit cool because they're not really getting into those fights. But Alamau, he's going to find and win one. Manages to get himself an opening pick headshot onto Leon. But Deepak's there to get one of his own, taking Virtue down. That's the Ash off the board. And it leaves us in a 4v4.
Bit of an early C4 coming out there as well. No one actually inside the building. Doki and Blur both taking some chip damage, but here comes Benja with the backstab. Almost gets into a second, but no! Cryan shuts him down. Not quite the same as how round 1 went when it was Benja playing off on the Kavira. And it's Spoit to bring another one down. Looking much better here for Koi, but it's Doki. At this point, it's KD padding before the round comes to an end. And I say comes to an end, Tim. Only thing I'm unsure of is which way it goes. It's a 1 versus 2, but Doki is the player you want in this kind of position.
Well, he's got an age of time on the board as well. You know, a 1v3 definitely possible for him. No, he's going to have to overextend. I think he gets challenged from Master. That was my concern. No, Doki, you just went too soon. He dumps the Candela in, goes to the immediate peak, I think hoping that the defender might have turned into a corner, might have tried to move away from that gadget, but had he just left it to flash potentially, he might have got a different outcome. It was a great effort from Doki though, nonetheless, but we find ourselves 3-6 now.
Tim, I've realised it. Doki is actually Gigantobrain. We just didn't see it in the moment. What he's done there is collected every kill possible till there's 1 man left and then through the round. Because otherwise you can't keep him padding out his
Needs
KD.
more rounds.
That's it. Because now he's at 21, for example. It's like, guys, if I won that last round, I end on 21 and Oranagiri is safe in first place.
One thing I will say as a word of caution is, before coming into SI, our wonderful colleague and friend, Fresh. The confusion I had was whether to say his full name with it or not. I wasn't trying to remember who I was talking about. I'm not that.
No, you were. You looked lost to me, Tim. I saw that confusion on your face.
I was just wondering whether to put his name in there or not. But Fresh did a bingo card before he came in, and there was one square on it particularly that stood out to me. Straight away, top right corner, I believe it is. You'll have to go and check. But it's Ace and Des. Map 3 goes to overtime. I don't think we're going to get to map 3. I don't know if it specifies map 3 or not.
I think we will. I think you'll see a big bounce back.
If it's just Ace and Des map goes to overtime,
it's map 3, because I suggested it.
How hilarious would it be that it's the very first one that we...
No, because I think what he had for us was, originally he had in the middle of his board, so I remember I was in his stream, because I'm a good supporter like that. He had something like Ace and Des do a funny intro, and I was like, well, that's a given. So let's do something that isn't guaranteed, but is kind of likely. Map 3 overtime felt about right.
Yeah. And I think we may well see map 1 overtime at this rate. It wouldn't surprise me to see it from all 3 maps. However, Alamau manages to come in, get himself another opener. You know, we did question Alamau and some of his peaks earlier in the game, but certainly seems to be finding those entries now, managing to get Kanto taken down. That's the Oryx gone as well. Super mobile operator can obviously get up and down those hatches, always dangerous on the flank. Spoit takes a lot of damage, but along with Cryan manages to get a kill, and that leaves us now with a little swingaroo in terms of manpower, and it's going to be Koi with the advantage, 4 versus 3.
And you're seeing the confidence build because they've challenged so aggressively here, Koi. It's like watching G2 back in the first half. A couple of round wins has got that built up now, and yes, they're starting to unpick G2 kill after kill. Spoit, what a play coming out as well. Impacts the wall, goes for Doki, who sat on the other side and gets himself a kill. Turning into a bit of a Doki of himself now, moving up to 9 and 7, about to break double digits. And now for Virtue and Blur, it's a long way to the top in a 2v4.
Spoit's quietly doing some work here. If you have a look at his numbers, he's up to 9 kills and getting himself on the roam really has done him the world of good, starting to pick those up, and you know, he's fighting through the pain, taking damage along the way, but doesn't mind whatsoever getting the job done. It's going to be a reasonably easy finish you would expect here for Koi, 4 versus 2. There's plenty of time on the clock for G2, but they're going to have to find themselves a couple of kills, and Blur and Virtue both been quiet so far this game, so it's certainly asking a task of them.
I love it, because Spoit here said, well guys, look, we can afford to lose a man. I'm low health anyway. I can waste a bit of time by playing up on the top floor, and G2 have to hunt him down. They've probably burned about 30 seconds here, droning him out, seeing what's going on. He's burnt through a couple of drones as well. They've got, what, 3 still left available to use, with Virtue and Blur still having 1 in back pocket. It's looking pretty good. They've burnt through some time, but if G2 do lose this round, they'll be kicking themselves. They've got 2 C4s on side. They've got the Pulse. They should not be losing this round.
No, they shouldn't. And the thing there is, that's fantastic play from Spoit. He lost his fight, but it doesn't matter. He's just burnt 30 seconds of a minute 10 and left G2 really scratching for time here to get themselves in. And it's all going to come down to a little bit of a Hail Mary push at the end, I would imagine. Blur does have a look. He knows there's potentially somebody in Memo, but it's not going to matter because the crossfire's in place. Crying manages to hit him from piano. And he likes the sound of that as Deepak manages to get that final kill. Koi bring us back to 4-6, and honestly, I can't believe that we're facing an overtime in our very first map of SI 2023.
Were we 6-1 or was it? No, it was 5-1. Was it 6-1? Yeah, it was 6-1. So it's a real hill to climb for Koi as well, but step by step, they are indeed climbing. Just a look there at some of the stats as well, in case you've been missing that on the side of the screen. Doki at 21-6, definitely slowed down the second half, kind of expected on the attack inside, and we clocked in that
the stream during that technical pause. We are currently 6-4 in favour of G2. G2 came out super strong. Doki's on an absolute... Doki's on a life game at the minute. He's absolutely flying. We'll get a reminder just how many kills, obviously, with loading back.
He was on 21.
That down. He was on 21. Kill record 27, of course, on Aguirre, on Oregon at a previous SI, setting that record. So 7 more kills from Doki. That's the magic number that you're looking for on his player card up there. Will get him the 1 map kill record. But more important than that, G2 were 6-1 up, and Koi have managed to win 3 on the bounce. Now they've got themselves onto the defense, going fantastically well, and it's going to be interesting to see what that little pause we've had just does to the momentum that they were carrying through this game.
Absolutely that. And for Koi, again, they're going back towards a comp that we saw them running. I think it was back in the very first round of their defensive half, where they have the Yokais on side from Deepet. They have the Valkyrie cams. I think it was Crying on it last time round, not Leon. But either way, just kind of like choosing who plays what there doesn't really matter. But also the Mozzie on side. So lots of potential information coming out of Koi. Didn't really see that too much from G2 when they were on the defensive side, but what I do like from that is they brought along the Jackal and the Nomad here. So really looking to try and lock down any cheekiness coming out of Koi. Clearly the conversation has been right. We are getting sideswiped here by players that we don't even know are in certain positions. I think back to Benja walking blind, for example, through Trophy and Statuary, and Spoit taking him out for free. So here it screams to me, we want more control, we want to play a little bit slower, a little bit better as a team, and that they believe is their path to win this one round they need to close things out.
Ned goes in, and it's just going to force the player out of concrete there, give a little bit of access potentially into Master Bedroom for G2 to get themselves inside of the map. Kanto's taken a ton of damage there as well, and has to fall back to Red Stairs. Just going to keep him out of the fight a little bit. Deepek, as always, being cheeky with the Yokais. Doki manages to find Spoit, and that is not an ideal player to lose when you've got Kanto on low health as well. Deepek, with a little bit of fancy footwork, just manages to unknowingly move himself out of danger there. Doki unable to find anything from underneath, but it is looking good for G2. Great start.
What makes me a little bit nervous there is, as we said before, we had the technical timeout, was that Spoit was the one really starting to ramp into the game. He was only at 9-7. It was the highest for the team, but he was starting to have a really big impact in some of these rounds. And with him off the board, it's the same as when G2 lost Doki. As they have now, who is going to step in to fill the void? And with those 2 players offline, I'm really curious to see who comes up big for the Ida Tide here.
Leon just getting a little bit loosey-goosey at the top of main stairs there, drops himself down underneath, manages to find a nitro kill onto Doki. And that is good for Koi. It just allows them to dig their heels in a little bit and just prevent G2 at least taking that south-sided map control. Deepak's going to be feeding the information in for the push that's currently coming through 90. Kanto with a beautiful kill from behind the shield, just using those little visual aids in the shield there to maximise his opportunity to get the kills, and it just takes him down to a 4 versus 3.
This is where that Flores ban from Koi is going to come in big as well. This is one of the most, common setups that we see for this site. You have to try and nade it, which means peeking in blind, which means Kanto can get freebies. Gets blasted out from below by the ITA! What a response from Alamau. Beautiful stuff.
I'm going to go so far as to say that's the only ITA kill that we see at SI 2023.
Very possibly. Crying steps out and brings down Alamau, leaving Blur in a 1v3, who, like Deepet back in the first half, has been really quiet so far because his team have been the ones getting involved in everything. Should see himself finding himself getting taken down here as he steps steps in for the plant. Koi will hear that one from an absolute mile away. As out comes Deepak now looking to try and take the fight, and Blur has really sold himself short here. Surely sees the barrel of the gun, and Deepak's right in there with that supernova. Bam, bam, pop. And down goes Blur.
Smart play from Koi at the end of the round there, not giving anything for free to Blur. You know, with 6-7 seconds left, you've got to be careful in those situations. It looks like they are all but won, but it can get difficult towards the end. So just managing to close that one out there. Well played from Koi, and that is going to take us potentially into overtime.
Well, just one more round. Yeah, Trophy and Statue going to be the final battleground for regulation rounds in the game. Oh, I can't believe they've fought it back as well as they have. Like, I know we were saying early in the game, look, they're not playing for trades. It doesn't look like Koi. They look low energy. I said the same about them over breakfast as well. It feels a little bit more awake. Still calm and composed, but a little more like the Koi that we all know and love. For G2, even with that long timeout, they did try something different in the last round, bringing the Jack on the Nomad forward. Still couldn't close things out. So now it's their turn to be the ones who fall into a little bit of despair, because I imagine going into overtime, Koi will be the ones starting on defense. As the ones who pick the map, they get to pick what side they start on in overtime, and no one, bar maybe a couple of APAC teams I can imagine, would choose to start attack on Villa.
10 seconds remaining.
Well then, here we go. Let's find out whether this is the end of things, if G2 can close this out and get themselves the win to begin with in map 1, or whether we're going to see a little bit more of Villa. Koi have been looking fantastic in the last couple of rounds. G2 just unable to crack the shell of their defense, unable to really get themselves established in there, you know, and working towards those rounds win, or the one round win that they need. Okay, just open up the windows underneath, aware that there could be that roam presence. It's something that Koi have utilised so far, and they're going to be looking for a bit more joy from it.
You're hoping so, and joy is surely what they need. Kanto holding the cheeky little rat angle, hoping someone walks underneath the doorway, but not to be the case. He's crying on the Warden, holding off really far away from sight, which can often be risky, but the reason here you're playing the Warden out as slow as he is, of course, is you can negate all the flashes that come flying your way. There are only 3 in the back pockets of Alamar, and that's all that G2 have got, but it's Leon running out onto a Claymore, I think almost taken down there, Blur, as well by Leon, but collects the kill before Leon can complete.
Big start for G2. They have to double down on this. We've seen them have the opener a couple of times in the last rounds, round 11, round 10, both G2 opening kills, round 9 as well, actually stringing them together, but unable to secure rounds with the man advantage. And once again, they've got that opportunity now. Leon's been a tricky player for them to be against in the last few rounds, so getting him off the board is not a terrible start. Deepak gone as well, leaving us now 4 versus 3. G2 really trying to get the map control and use it here.
Here we go, stepping in there. So the 4 versus 3, this should be all they need. And sure enough, Virtue's going to find Spoit as he steps out a little bit blind there. And it's Kanto and Crying to clutch up big. One comes out on the C4. The thing is, I think of Crying in these spots, I know he's the kind of player that can pull these big plays out. But against the 3 players, one of them being Benja, it might be too tall an order.
Certainly
there it is.
Alamar's going to be holding that angle. Kanto manages to find Benja on the red stairs, though, shuts him down with a headshot. Leaves us now in a 2 versus 1, fighting his way back. 2 more kills for him to find. 1 minute left. Oh, but Alamar, it's going to be from the window, finds his man, closes it down, and G2, they take map 1.
It's one of those that we look at and say, what could have been for Koi, but G2 with a good, decisive last round. Keep things going. We'll throw to a quick break, and when we come back, Clubhouse awaits.
But I think like we're just like first met.